والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this gathering, reading the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam and making salah on the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, because we will mention his name alayhi salatu wassalam many times. And this is an act of worship that all of us ordered to do, and not to be among those who are greedy when the name of the Prophet ﷺ is mentioned. People do not make salah on the Prophet ﷺ. We are still in the chapter of ما يحذر من زهرة الدنيا والتنافس فيها. The warning of the adornment of this life and competing in it, that will take the person away from the purpose of what they have been created for. And just briefly, as it was mentioned last time, the ayat of the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that warns against the dunya, against this worldly adornment. It's not about the dunya itself, the air and the sun and the beauty in it. It's about being taken away from the purpose of our life, which is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for a person to commit sins, and to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking the pleasure of this world and forgetting about the hereafter. Or a person would be indulged in the halal, the permissible means, but too much of what is permissible that makes the person also away from the obligations and fulfilling the purpose of our life. So the diseases of the sins and the diseases of al-ghafla, or to be in state of forgetfulness. This dunya, the owner of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of this life and the hereafter, and our creator, the creator of all things, He created this life for a reason. Created us for a reason. We have a mission in this life. And that is to establish the ubudiyyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not according to what we think, according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. And that's why many people, they have a distorted idea of what ibadah is. They think it's just some rituals that a person will do once in a while and that's it. No, al-ibadah encompasses everything in our life. There's no breath we take unless we're supposed to be in that state of fulfilling the purpose of our life. And we have the example, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, in his ibadah, in matters of belief, in manners, in dealing with others, in transactions, everything. There is means for us to establish on earth, and that's why we have a lot of work to do. We have knowledge to seek, to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and then to be patient with ourselves, to wean ourselves away from being attached to this, the adornment of this life, and to live this life. We will have the best of this life and the hereafter if we follow the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is basically what these hadith means. We talked about 3 hadith in the chapter, and the 4th one, in the same chapter, he says, قال حدثني محمد بن بشار قال حدثنا محمد بن جعفر قال حدثنا شعبة قال سمعت أبا جمرة قال حدثني زهدم ابن مضرب قال سمعت عمران بن حسين رضي الله عنه أو عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال خيركم قرني ثم الذين يلونهم. وقال عمران فما أدري قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد قوله مرتين أو 3 ثم يكون بعدهم الحديث. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, خيركم, the best among you, قرني. قرني is my qarn. قرني, my qarn. Qarn is a portion of time, generation, or century. Sometimes I translate it like this. What is the meaning of qarn? Some said 100 years. Many would say 100 years. 100 years is the century, right? And some said that it's the generation that with the Prophet ﷺ. And this is what is more accurate. So when the Prophet ﷺ is talking about his generation, or meaning referring to the companions of the best generation of this ummah is the generation of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. The last companion, Abu Tufayl radiallahu anhu, that died was in the year 110 after the Hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the first generation. The last person saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was around 110 years after the Hijrah. So this is the first generation, meaning those who saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then ثم الذين يلونهم, then those who come after them, which is the tabi'een. The tabi'een are the ones that saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning that they saw the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And it was said that the last among them was around 180 of the Hijrah, so it was a lesser generation. And the third one, as Ibn Hajar rahimahullah he said, was around 220 after the Hijrah. But it's not but by the years, it's by those who witnessed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For someone to see the Prophet ﷺ in his lifetime, this was a level of virtue that nobody, the whole ummah together, they cannot reach this level of that one person. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them to be with the Prophet ﷺ. I believe it was mentioned before, this athar or this tradition that a man asked Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, one of the great tabi'een, and he asked him who is better, who is more virtue. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, radiallahu anhu, rahimahullah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. He was not from the Sahaba. He was a great person. And they usually refer to him sometimes as the fifth Khalifa because he returned things back the way it was at the rightly guided Khalifa time. But he was not among the companions. He did not get this great virtue to see the Prophet ﷺ, to sit with him and to talk with him and so on. So he was asked who's more virtue, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz or Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. So the answer was, without no hesitation, he said that a turab or the dust that entered the nose of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is better than Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Why? Because there's no comparison. It is not even a subject of comparison. And then it was, as he said, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he talked with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Prophet, he prayed behind the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam, he heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam reciting Quran. If the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Sami Allahu liman hamidah, he would say, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. So who can get to this level whatsoever? That's why the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned them in the Quran and made anything that comes after them, their virtue and success in this life and in the hereafter depend on how much they follow the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. This is by the statement of the Quran. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. Those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with are the foremost among the Muhajirin and the Ansar, the people of Mecca and the people of the Medina, and then who else? وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم, and those who followed them with ihsan, with goodness. These are the three categories where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with and are pleased with him. The point of the hadith being here is not there yet. So the best generation is the generation of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we can talk a lot about this, but this is one of the principles of our deen, that we apply the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam the way it was by those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with. ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُم, then those who come after them, which is the tabi'een. And Imran ibn Husayn, the Sahabi radiallahu anhu, he said, فَمَا أَدْرِي, I do not really know, does not remember. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد قوله مرتين أو ثلاثة. Did the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم say that two after the best generation is my generation? Did he said that twice or three times after that? Right? And many of the narrations that he said three times. So it goes like this, the most virtue, then the next, and so on and so forth. Then, and this is why he brought the hadith here, ثُمَّ يَكُونُ بَعْدَهُمْ, then will come after them قَوْمٌ يَشْهَدُونَ وَلَا يُسْتَشْهَدُونَ. People, يَشْهَدُونَ. يَشْهَدُونَ means they witness. And they are not being asked to witness. Means that they haste in witnessing. They run into witnessing against people also. Right? Mainly, especially in the court of law. Right? Because witnessing is one of the principles of applying a punishment or so on someone. And the Prophet ﷺ warned them, before that in the Quran, warning against those who would falsely witness against someone, that the believers do not witness on anything that is falsehood. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he was talking to the companions عنهم, telling them the major or the most or the biggest of the major sins, and then when the Shahadat al-Zur came, falsely saying a witness to accuse someone lying, the Prophet ﷺ was reclining and he stood up and he said, Ala wa Shahadat al-Zur, Ala wa Shahadat al-Zur, and he kept repeating it, warning against falsely witnessing, lying in witness, that he kept repeating it والسلام, till the companions عنهم, till the narrator of the hadith, he said, لَيْتَهُ second, out of the fear and out of the love to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I wish that he would stop والسلام, because of the much concern that he saw in the Prophet ﷺ when he was warning against falsely witnessing or saying a lie in a witness. So these people, those who come later because of the weakness of their religion, they don't care. They're witnessing against anything for anything. He would even, before he's asked, he would rush and say, yes, I saw this. I witnessed that this person did this. Right? Without paying attention, without being sure. And the level of witness, and this is another subject, we don't want to get into the details of this, but when it comes to witnessing, as the hadith says, person should not rush to it because he will be asked about it in the Day of Judgment. And you witness on only the things that you saw, like you see the sun. Right? No doubt you see the sun. What are the things that you can witness for or against? If you see it like you saw the sun. Not that someone told you, or not like something in the dark, or maybe not, or maybe yes, because you swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same level of certainty that you have when you see the sun, the same thing when a person would witness. And still not to rush in it or to it unless some right will be lost or something like this. You're the only witness, and there's two pillars to witnessing, at-tahammul wal-ada. At-tahammul is to have the witness. You saw something, so this is one thing. And al-ada is to do it, to say the witness, this is another thing. Ibrahim Rd, which is the narrator of the next hadith, which is the same narration, almost the same one, he said, and he was from the Tabi'in, he said, كانوا يضربوننا على الشهادة والعهد. When they were children, they used to beat them up as a punishment, a means of tarbiyah, of upbringing them, on matters of witnessing and covenants and promises. A child, when the children, they play together and someone would come and say, I saw him. I saw him beating this person or doing what is wrong. He said they used to beat us up when we would be in haste in giving a witness, although they're not responsible for their actions, right? So they would tend sometimes not to be accurate or exaggerate in their witness. And these are children playing. We say they're just playing, it's okay. They used to be very strict with them. You do not give false witnesses whatsoever, to make sure that they grow up like this. This is what he said, and this is how they were raised. Who raised them? The Sahaba radiallahu anhu. So those who would come after them, yashhadun, they just give their witness and they're hasty in it. وَلَا يُسْتَشْهَدُونَ, meaning that they're not being asked. Before they're being asked to witness, they would rush to do it. And you can imagine those who would go to witness because they're being paid for it. This is another level of misery and sins. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. And of course the danger of it is known, because punishments will be incurred on someone that is people witnessed against him and so on. The second thing is وَيَخُونُونَ وَلَا يُؤْتَمَنُونَ. The people, those who come after them, يَخُونُون. And again, it's not all of them, but this will be apparent. It become more seen. At the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, there was no such a thing if a person would do this, or the munafiqeen, right? But in general, there was no such evil acts to be apparent and to be widespread. So يَخُونُونَ وَلَا يُؤْتَمَنُونَ. يَخُونُون means they betray one another, betrayal, right? They would give the trust from someone and then they betray their trust. وَلَا يُؤْتَمَنُونَ, the opposite of it, and they are not to be trusted. Someone would give you something as a trust, something to keep it for him, for example, and then the person would say, I didn't take nothing from you. Or entrust him with, whether it's speech or actions or something of a value. Any mean of trust, as long of course as it's halal, they would betray their trust. وَيَنْذُرُونَ وَلَا يُوفُونَ. They make nadhr, they make vow, and the nadhr is when a person make it an obligation on himself with speech. It is not just by an intention in the heart. For example, a person would say on himself, he would say on himself, that he would fast 3 days this month. If he said this with his tongue, like that means it's a nadhr, it means he has to do it. Right? Most of the nadhr, most of the vow that people do is when they make it as a condition. If I pass my exam, I will do this or this. If he says it with his tongue, if it's in his heart, it's not nadhr. If it's in his heart, he has the intention, if he passes his exam, that he would feed people or something like this, and he passed and he didn't do it, definitely it's a good thing to do it, but it's not a nadhr, it's not haram. But once he says it with his tongue, it becomes obligation, fard on the person, and he has to fulfill it according to how he intended and according to how he said it. So these people will come, they will give the nadhr or the vow, and that's why the nadhr is makruh, it's disliked. Why would you make something obligatory on you when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had relieved you from it? But what is recommended, what is good to do, say for example you passed your exam. Then without making a nadhr or vow or so, just feed people, or fast, or make, whatever, without making it an obligation before it happens. But if a person does it, then he has to fulfill it. So these people will come, they would give vows, but they would never fulfill it. وَلَا يُوفُونَ وَيَظْهَرُ فِيهِمُ السِّمَنُ. يَظْهَرُ فِيهِمُ السِّمَنُ. السِّمَنُ is fat. يَظْهَرُ فِيهِمْ, it will be apparent in them that they are fat, gaining weight. What this means, it means that because of the desire of this world, they're going after this dunya, this world. They don't care where they get things from, so the concern is like this, then it becomes so much widespread, like an epidemic, basically. And it's not condemning it for someone that has no faults in it, or has no part in it. Like usually when a person grows old, for example, he gains weight, or the woman after some certain age, they gain weight, or things like this, without them going after the food too much. And of course, this is definitely, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us from this, but this is our shortcomings. And again, so as the ulama, they say it's not to condemn being fat or being heavy by itself, it's for those who would run after this worldly gain, and as a result of that, they will tend to be like this. Because a person might be committing sins day and night, and he is very skinny. Doesn't mean that he's very virtuous, right? And the opposite, a person might be heavy in weight, but he's the most righteous. So this is not what it means. It means those who would compromise the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going after this worldly gain, and as a result of that, this would show on them. So this is to show how the attachment to the adornments of this dunya. The next hadith is a close narration to it. يقول حدثنا عبدان. And again, every narrator of these hadith, they are a'imma. If you look into the biography, this is by itself is another set of knowledge that is such an amazing thing. A person can spend all of his life to learn about the biographies of these people, volumes and volumes of books, right? For each person, especially for those who are Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, narrated the hadith from them. This is, when he says حدثنا عبدان, who's Abdan? He's the Sheikh of Imam, one of the Shuyukh of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. And he was Imam. He was not just a normal person. He's Imam in matters of the deen and matters of the knowledge. يقول حدثنا عبدان عن أبي حمزة عن الأعمش سليمان بن مهران عن إبراهيم النخعي. إبراهيم النخعي, he's from the Tabi'in. It was said that he saw Aisha radiallahu anha. He would go with his uncle. They would go ask Aisha radiallahu anha, and she's behind the curtain, behind the hijab. And he was a little boy, and he would go in there. And he even, he would see her, and so he saw Aisha radiallahu anha. He's from the Tabi'in. And he is someone of virtue and knowledge, and he has great statement. He's the one that said that they used to punish them when it comes to matters of witnessing when they're young. Not to let these things slip away from the children when they do wrong in these matters, to make sure that they are honest and truthful. He said عن عبيدة عن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال خير الناس قرني. Here different slight change in the narration. خير الناس, the best people, hardly my generation. ثم الذين يلونهم, then the next generation. ثم الذين يلونهم, then those who come after them. ثم يجيء من بعدهم, then come after them قوم, people, تسبق شهادتهم أيمانهم وأيمانهم شهادتهم, which means people that their shahada, their witness, tasbih means goes ahead faster than their iman, than their ayman, than their oath. Right? Usually when you give your witness, you have to give an oath, right? So they are so much in haste to give their witness, they don't care because of the weakness of their religion. They don't know the reality and the heaviness of giving a witness against someone, that they will be the reason for that person to be executed, to be prisoned, to be whatever. They don't really care, so they just want a witness, right, to gain some benefit or so. So their witness comes before their ayman, before their oath. وَأَيْمَنُهُمْ شَهَادَتَهُمْ, and their oath will come first before their witness. Meaning what? They don't care, they just want to make their witness. Swear. No, swear on what? It doesn't matter. He would just swear, take the oath, no problem. He doesn't care, he's taking an oath on whatever. What you want me to take an oath on, he will take it, and he would witness a false witness, or he would witness and then take the oath. Has no value to it in his heart. That means he has so much weakness in his iman that he doesn't care to falsely accuse someone, or to witness and to say lies, even if he thinks that he is honest and truthful, but he's just exaggerating. For example, this is a major disaster. If a person exaggerates in his witness, again it has to be like he saw the sun. Then he says, حدثني يحيى بن موسى قال حدثنا وكيع قال حدثنا إسماعيل عن قيس قال سمعت خبابا. Khabbab is Khabbab ibn Rd radiallahu anhu. He was from the foremost of the Muhajirin, one of the very first, those who accepted Islam with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said, I heard Khabbab وقد اكتوى يومئذ سبعا في بطنه, that he had made cake. Iktawa, it's a mean of seeking cure, and I always forget that word in English. It's very, they do it nowadays when with fire.
Heartburn.
Cauterization.
Huh?
Cauterization.
Say it again.
Cauterization.
Cauterization means of branding. Yes, branding.
They do to the animals.
Right, branding. So he was branded 7 times in his stomach. Right? There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ with the 70,000 those who would enter Jannah without hisab, without reckoning, and no punishment, 70,000. The Prophet ﷺ, when he talked about them, he said, هم الذين لا يسترقون ولا يكتوون ولا يتطيرون على ربهم يتوكلون. These are the ones that don't ask for ruqyah. If they make it on themselves, fine. If somebody do it on them, that's fine, but they don't ask for it. Asking for the ruqyah is not haram, but these are, some high level of people that they put their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't ask for people to give them ruqyah, they do it on their own selves. Or if someone do it on them, they have no problem with it, but they don't ask for it. وَلَا يَكْتَوُونَ, they don't do this branding as a mean of cure. It's not to say that it's haram, because here is an evidence where the Sahaba, some of them would do that among even the foremost of the Muhajirin. So it's permissible to do branding as a mean of cure, if it's valid and if it's good. But because of this hadith, and to say some of them did not hear this hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, leaving it is a better thing, but it's not something that is mandatory for the person to leave. So anyway, so he did this 7 times in his stomach. وَقَالَ, so he was in so much pain as a result of this sickness that he has. He said, رضي الله عنه, لولا أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نهانا أن ندعو بالموت لدعوت بالموت. He said, if it wasn't that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, nahana means forbade us, to make dua to die, and ندعو بالموت, to make dua to die, لدعوت بالموت, I would make dua to die. But why he's not making dua to die? Because the Prophet ﷺ forbade them from doing so. A man asked the Prophet ﷺ, can a person ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his death? Whether it's because of severe pain, like people sometimes even commit suicide, or too much fitan. A person might be so much worried about his iman that it can be slipped away. As the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that the fitan, the tribulations will be so much that a person would pass by the grave and he would have ghibta, he would wish that he is in the place of that person in the grave to save his religion. He would see that those who are in the grave, they are in a better state than him, because he's so afraid of his religion to lose his religion. So the Prophet ﷺ forbade them, and he said, إِن كَانَ لَبُدَّ فَاعِلًا, if you have to say something, say, اللهم أحيني ما علمت الحياة خيرا لي وتوفني ما علمت الوفاة خيرا لي. Say, oh Allah, give me life if you know that life is good for me, and make me die if death is good for me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But not to make the dua of one or the other, because it can be a source of misery for the person. So he said the Prophet ﷺ forbade them to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for death. And then he said, إِنَّ أَصْحَابَ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم مَضَوْا وَلَمْ تَنْقُصْهُمُ الدُّنْيَا بِشَيْءٍ وَإِنَّا أَصَبْنَا مِنَ الدُّنْيَا مَا لَمْ نَجِدُ لَهُ مَوْضِعًا إِلَّا التُّرَابِ. And that's why he brought this hadith here. He said, إِنَّ أَصْحَابَ مُحَمَّدٍ. He's talking about the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and he is from them, but he lived long. So he was referring to those who passed away before him. Madaw. Madaw means they left. They left this dunya, they returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَمْ تَنْقُصْهُمُ الدُّنْيَا بِشَيْءٍ. The dunya did not make them less in anything. This is such an amazing statement. The dunya did not take anything less from them. That means they did the best that they can, and the dunya did not affect them. This worldly gain and the beauty of this world did not affect them in a negative way with matters of the religion. وَلَمْ تَنْقُصْهُمُ الدُّنْيَا بِشَيْءٍ وَإِنَّا أَصَبْنَا. He says, and we أَصَبْنَا مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. We incurred things from the dunya. مَا لَنَجِدَ لَهُ مَوْضِعًا إِلَى التُّرَابِ. We incurred things of the dunya that we don't find any place for it except the dust, referring to buildings, right? That they would spend the money in building houses and building things and so on. It was said that each person, of course, a second or to have a house, this is a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran. And a person, this is one of the necessities for a person to have a shelter. But this is one thing, as it's mentioned in some of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, a person does not get reward in building his house. This is the one thing that you don't get reward unless it's the necessity. Meaning, anything beyond what is necessary, you don't get rewards in it. So if it's adornment and domes and other things that looks nice from outside that has no functional benefit to it, if you make it comfortable and so on, no problem. But once it becomes just things that has no benefit, it is of no reward whatsoever. And this is what he means here. And that's why the Sahabi that was building his dome and the Prophet ﷺ passed by and he asked about who is doing this, and the Prophet ﷺ disapproved that someone will do this, and he said, إِنَّ الْأَمْرَ يعني أعجل من ذلك أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, that the matter is much more closer than this. Meaning this life is very soon will finish, and for a person to be busy with building and what's a dome is going to do to his house. And when the Sahabi heard about this, he immediately demolished it, and he went to the Prophet ﷺ, asking the Prophet ﷺ to forgive him. He didn't know. So they were, again, once they are corrected, they will be immediately rushed into this. Again, it doesn't mean that a person should be homeless. No, having a house, having a big house, no problem. But the things that would not benefit the person, they used to stay away from it as a high level of iman. And this is what he was having this sadness inside of him, that now they're building and they have more wealth and so on. يقول حدثنا محمد بن المثنى قال حدثنا يحيى عن إسماعيل قال حدثني قيس قال أتيت خبابا وهو يبني حائطا. This is the second narration that makes the previous one clearer. He said, I came to Khabbab ibn Rd radiallahu anhu, and he was building حائطا. حائطا is a garden. He was building the fence of his garden. فقال إن أصحابنا الذين مضوا لم تنقصهم الدنيا شيئا. He said the same thing, our companions, those who left this world, the dunya did not take away from them anything, did not make them less in anything. وَإِنَّا أَصَبْنَا مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ شَيْئًا لَا نَجِدُ لَهُ مَوْضِعًا إِلَّا فِي التُّرَابِ. And we gain some worldly gain that we don't find any place for it except in this dust, building and stones and so on. Of course, he was not doing, again, something haram, right? But this is how a Muslim, a believer also should always put himself down. It's a healthy thing. by the way. It's a good thing, as long as it doesn't take the person away from actions, because this can go into an extreme where the person would quit doing any good deeds because he would think that he is the worst person on the earth. But to put ones down so that the person is not deceived, that will get him to do more work and more matters of worship. When he would see himself he's deficient, he's weak, he's not doing as he's supposed to do, so that will encourage him to do what is more and so on. And this is what he would say, radiallahu anhu, building this fence. The last hadith in the chapter, it says, حدثنا محمد بن كثير عن سفيان عن الأعمش عن شقيق أبي وائل عن خباب رضي الله عنه. Also خباب رضي الله عنه, he said, هاجرنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And this is what Imam Bukhari in this chapter he mentioned. He said, we migrated with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's it. This hadith, he mentioned it in a previous chapter, in the chapter of Fadail al-Sahaba, in the virtues of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, in the chapter of the Hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That Khabbab radiallahu anhu, he said, هاجرنا مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. We migrated with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. وكانت هجرتنا لوجه الله تبارك وتعالى. And our hijrah was for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's saying that. And the hadith says that, let me see if he has the exact wording of the hadith, that when they made the migration with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَوَقَعَ أَجْرُنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى. Our reward, we got our reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed them. And because the Quran was revealed to inform them this. فَمِنَّا مَنْ مَضَى لَمْ يَأْخُذْ مِنْ أَجْرِهِ شَيْئًا. He said, among us those who left this world, and they didn't take anything of their worldly reward. So as if he was saying previously, that we got our reward, meaning the worldly benefit of the hijrah. When they made hijrah fi sabilillah for the sake of Allah, their life became better, and they became successful in this life and so on, although they had it only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَنْ يُهَاجِرْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يَجِدْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُرَاغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعًا. Whoever migrate for the sake of Allah, he would find on earth مُرَاغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعًا, all kinds of spaciousness. So don't make yourself miserable in matters of religion. The Muslim does not compromise his religion. The hijrah, migration, is always the means of those who are oppressed. Because this is how it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. When the people oppressed them, they cannot worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do? They just go to a place where they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is, they need the hijrah. So, and they get the benefit of it also in this life. And he said, radiallahu anhu, and among us those who did not get anything of the worldly gain, from among them is Mus'ab ibn Umayr, radiallahu anhu. And he's remembering, he's saying that to remember, and that made him feel sad. Because Mus'ab radiallahu anhu, he mentioned the same hadith, that when he was martyred in the battle of Uhud, they did not find something to cover his whole body as a coffin. He had only one sheet. If they covered his head, his feet will show. If they covered his feet, his head will show. And who was Mus'ab ibn Umayr? The one that was well known in Mecca to be the most luxuriously living youth among the people and the youth of Mecca, where his itr and perfume would come to him from, not from Mecca, from Yemen, and the clothing and so on. He would walk from one street or one alley, people would know that Mus'ab passed by this place because of the special smell that he has and so on. And when he became a Muslim, right, and the story is interesting, the story of Mus'ab radiallahu anhu, but we don't have time. But the point is here, when he was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he left all of this and he became in such a state that when he would travel with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his skin would peel off because he's not used to the roughness of what they would go through. And he was patient with that, radiallahu anhu, and he was martyred, and he didn't even have a piece of cloth to cover his whole body after being such a man of wealth and so on. So this is why he remembered that that gave him grief in his heart. And then the Prophet ﷺ, when they asked him in the same hadith, it says, he ordered them to put an irkhar, which is, they call it, it's present now, it's the yellow grass, on his foot. to cover his head and to put it on his foot as a way to cover what is exposed. And then at the end of the hadith, Khabbab radiallahu anhu, which is not mentioned here in this chapter, he says, وَمِنَّا. So he talked about those who did not see the reward in this life, like Mus'ab ibn Umayr. They passed away, and of course they have the reward full with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he was sad. He was worried that once a person is given something in this life, that takes away from the reward in the hereafter, so they won't get it in full in the hereafter. This is what he was worried about. And he said, وَمِنَّا مَنْ أَيْنَعَتْ ثَمَرَاتُهُ فَهُوَ يَهْدِبُهَا. Among us are those who their fruit أَيْنَعَتْ become very bright, and that means when you plant something, and then the plant is out and the fruit is out, فَهُوَ يَهْدِبُهَا, then he's taking care of it and beautifying it and so on. Saying that some of us, we waited till we saw the fruit of our actions. Among us, those who died and passed away, they did not see the fruit of their actions in this life. And that's why it is not something that many Muslims, they would give up and become away from the Salat al-Mustaqim, because they are in haste. They think if they are steadfast on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have to see something in their life. Nobody ever said that. We are abd to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The believers, they seek the rewards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter, and nothing but the hereafter. This is what they seek. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives someone life to see the effect of their actions and their patience and so on in this life, mashallah, this is great. If not, they get the rewards in full in the hereafter. And who said that the pledge was given for any worldly gain? The Sahaba radiallahu anhu, when they gave the pledge to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was nothing given to them that you will get this or that in this life. In return, when they made the pledge with the Prophet ﷺ, they said, what is for us? He said, Al-Jannah. He said only one word, والسلام, which is Al-Jannah. The Jannah, the paradise. And as a result of that, immediately they said, رَبِحَ. This is a profitable trade. لَا نَحِيرُ وَلَا نَسْتَحِيرُ. We'll never give it up, we'll never break it. This is something that, this is the best trade ever. And that's why he was sad, radiallahu anhu, that basically, they're as if they're spending from their own treasures when they would gain all kinds of good things in this life. But again, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so vast that it can cover this life and the hereafter, of course. But again, the believers, they always have this fear in their hearts because of what they did and said to the Prophet. We'll stop, inshallah ta'ala, at this point. And, inshallah, for those who want to leave, because it's late, but whoever wants to ask any questions, please go ahead, inshallah. Those who want to leave, don't feel very few.